What's up, everyone? This is Avery Smith on let's see, what night is it? This is a Thursday night at 8 p.m. And I'm super excited. We have a great guest today on the Data Career Podcast. We have Matthew Sharp. Matt, do you go by Matt or Matthew, I guess?
Matt's fine. Just whatever's easier.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. I'm really excited to have Matt. He's someone I've wanted to have on the podcast. Even when the podcast didn't exist yet, I had talked to Matt and I was like, hey, I want to do a podcast. I'd love to have you as a guest. That was like maybe January or February this year. And then it just took me a while to get to the podcast. But here we are. Matt's one of the first guests. Just a quick intro on Matt. Matt is a chemical engineer, turned data scientist, turned data engineer. In his past life, he was a data scientist for IM Flash, that's Intel and Micron company. And now he is currently a data engineer at MX, an awesome, innovative fintech company in Lehi, Utah, which is really close to me. That's another thing is Matt's from Utah. I'm also from Utah. He's king of LinkedIn polls. I have proclaimed him that. And in my opinion, he's one of the best and most underrated data people on LinkedIn. So welcome to the Data Career Podcast, Matt.
Thanks for having me. It's happy to be here.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky how somewhat similar our paths have been, because we both started as chemical engineers and then moved into the data sphere. I guess, why did you choose chemical engineering in the first place?
Because I was wanting punishment, I guess. I don't know. So I just always loved chemistry, and I was always really good at math. So I figured if I joined them together and became a chemical engineer, things would be like I would just have fun. But and don't get me wrong, like I loved the classes, and I met tons of awesome students and other things like that. I was actually the president of the AICHE organization at BYU.
Oh, wow.
So, for those who don't know, AICHE is like a career chemical engineering club. It's actually the largest club at BYU. And
oh, what?
Other things people don't know is like the whole BYU's career fair is completely put together by AICHE. And so anyway, so there's kind of a lot of perks that come from that history of AICHE leading that. But yeah, no, I loved chemical engineering.
Okay, so you liked chemistry and math. You loved chemical engineering. You liked the classes. Then I guess what happened? If you liked it, why aren't you doing it now? What happened?
So I guess the thing is, you know, once you get into industry, like you'll just never be as challenged as you are at school. You know, for the most part, the problems you need to solve aren't really long math problems. They're kind of more just basic, you know, human problems and communication. And you know, I first started as a process engineer, and you learn the processes behind it, but for the most part, you know, you're just making small incremental improvements, running certain experiments and things like that. And so, you know, I just found myself like always having small data problems. And so like one of the things you'll see in industry is that, you know, I was in semiconductor industry, and so like we had vendors that build these very complicated tools for us, and there's only a couple vendors, you know, for any individual tool, and generally you're going to pick the one that has the best process, but not necessarily the one that has the best software. And so like one of the pieces of software I worked with was a program called Clarity. And this thing was written maybe 20, 30 years ago and pretty much hasn't been updated since. And so it was just a real struggle, very poor UX, user experience and user interface. And so I just found myself building these small tools to slowly kind of automate. Oh, I'm going to pull data from here. I'm going to pull data from here, and then all of a sudden, like it just kind of led to me building programs and software that really required, kind of automating what engineer does, a chemical engineer, and that's not necessarily, a simple, add subtract. I was quickly finding myself reaching towards machine learning, especially when it came to processing images and other things like that.
Oh, interesting. So were you doing a decent amount of process or image processing there?
Yeah, so I worked in the RDA department there, and so RDA stands for real-time defect analysis, and so pretty much my entire job was looking at thousands of SEM images, so images of these defects, at the micro scale, and so it was, yeah, so kind of processing, understanding the processes behind what might cause those certain type of defects. But yeah.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And I guess what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2013.
Okay, and then did you work for I Am Flash right after that?
Yeah, so I had an internship with them and got a full-time offer and went to work with them.
Oh, so you had an internship. I guess that would have been the summer of 2012.
Yep, exactly.
Dude, it's so funny. I was supposed to be an intern in I Am Flash in 2012.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, I actually this is kind of a funny story. Like I guess even from like my freshman year, we're both from Utah. Matt went to BYU, which is in Provo, Utah, and I went to the University of Utah, which is in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they're separated maybe by like 40 minutes, 30 minutes. Um, but I mean, we're pretty close to each other. Like I grew up always going to BYU stuff. He's probably been to University of Utah stuff. They're pretty integrated schools in a lot of ways. Anyways, so and also Utah is not a huge market for chemical engineers. There's a few refineries here, but there's just not a whole lot of chemical engineering jobs in Utah. So the pickings are pretty slim. And so even my freshman year, I really wanted to work for I Am Flash. That was like my goal. I want to work for I Am Flash. I want to work for I Am Flash. And my sophomore year, I think I came pretty close in the interview process. They like notoriously like only want juniors, right? But my sophomore year, I got to go to dinner with them at the career fair, and they were interested. Didn't get it. Then my junior year, I ended up getting the internship. But anyways, I accepted it and everything. This is probably in like November. The career fair is probably like in October or something like that, right? I accepted it in November, and then I ended up getting an internship offer from Exxon in April. I ended up ditching I Am Flash, and I still feel bad to this day about it. But I was supposed to be there that summer. We would have been friends.
We definitely would have met a lot earlier than we have now.
Yeah. So it's so funny because, I mean, it's just funny how our lives could have changed, could have been a lot different. I Am Flash doesn't even really exist anymore. That's another funny thing. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I left it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you were kind of gone for how many years have you been gone now from I Am Flash?
So I left a year and a half ago. I I left right before I Am Flash was taken over by Micron, and
Okay.
so I literally the only day I worked for Micron is when I turned in my badge. So
Oh, there you go. Okay. And I guess so now you work for MX. Can you tell us a little bit about MX and what they do?
so MX is kind of a leader in the fintech space, and really we do so much. So it might just be easier to talk about what my team does. And so my team is the data enhancement team, and so we work with transactional data. So if you went to your bank statement and you were to look at the records, you can see that transactional data. You'll usually see like some big long string kind of describing, okay, you bought something from McDonald's, and like it would have a bunch of weird numbers and X's and other things like that. Usually it's very kind of fluff data in there. It would have like an amount in there and other things like that. And so a lot of what my team does is so MX, we aggregate a lot of data, and so and we have like a personal finance management tool. And so but if you want to use any of your finance data, you need to hook it all up. And then kind of what our system does is we clean and categorize and just overall improve it. So we do things like so that big long McDonald's string just becomes McDonald's. One of the things I've been working a lot on is adding location data to that. So it wouldn't just tell you McDonald's, it tells you it's this McDonald's at this location. It would then categorize that as this is a fast food transaction. So then you can then go in and use the personal finance manager to say, oh, I want to set limits on how much I'm spending on fast food or other things like that. And so a lot of what we're doing is helping the end user manage their finances and to get better and become more financially strong.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't realize, like you said, MX does a lot of things. I didn't know MX did that. Have you ever heard of Mint from Intuit?
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds pretty similar to Mint. Is MX's product free, or what does it cost?
So MX, we do business to business with.
Oh, okay.
So generally, the banks who do business with us offer these tools to them for free.
I see.
Yeah, so it's one way that banks stay competitive by having these advocacy tools, is what they're called.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So you guys sell basically to banks, and then banks can offer it as a service to their customers one way or another.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. I did want to say hello to Joe. He's also another Utah data guy. He said hello. Just want to say hi, Joe. He's coming on the podcast later in June. I'm excited for that. Okay, so that's a little bit about what you did at IamFlash, a little bit about what you did at MX. And I guess we didn't really talk about I guess when you got recruited or whatever, however you left IamFlash and went to MX. Did you know you're going to be doing data engineering?
Yeah, so I knew that I was making the switch. Actually, when I was interviewing with MX, they're like, you're a data scientist now, and we could definitely use a lot of that experience, but it seems like you also have a lot of actual engineering experience, and you've built a lot of programs and done a lot of coding. Would you be interested in becoming a data engineer? And so, and I was, and so I made the switch when I moved over to MX. And so I was actually, I think by title, I was actually the first data engineer here at MX. And so it was definitely very interesting being the first of something at a company, because I was given a lot of opportunities to kind of define my role and to help move MX in certain ways and directions that I might not get at other opportunities. So,
did you get that experience at IamFlash?
No.
Yeah, I guess. What was the culture like at IamFlash? Like, how did you feel like that differs from what you kind of just described at MX?
So, like, it's funny because IamFlash no longer exists, so I can talk bad about them as much as I want, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who's gonna get mad at you? None of them. The whole company doesn't exist anymore. I talk bad about Exxon, and they still exist. So
No, I would say overall, like I Am Flash was actually a really good company. However, it is a larger company. I mean, even though essentially it's just the one fab, it was a joint venture between Intel and Micron, and they had a lot of say and influence over the culture of I Am Flash. And so ultimately, it was just, it's a bigger company. You know, they kind of hire you to do something and they expect you to do that thing. And I was always getting in trouble for doing other things. I tend to be a rebel. I tend, you know, when I see uh, the system is broken, I tend to want to fix the system instead of try to work within the system. And so um, generally, it's always worked out for me just simply because I've been able to do that. You know, a lot of the programs and software I built at Iron Flash literally did save millions, right? And so there was always kind of a conflict of interest where a manager was always really happy with the work I did, but it wasn't what they asked me to do. So that can obviously, and I don't necessarily recommend people follow in my footsteps in this way, but
Wait, why not?
well, I meant it just led to conflict that didn't necessarily need to be there, right? So when, yeah, just
I mean, didn't it make a difference though? Didn't you save millions?
yeah, and I made people's life happier and less stressful, and
Yeah.
so I don't regret my decisions, but there's definitely conflict there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found a very similar experience between working for VaporSense, which was the first company I did data science for. Very small company, less than 20 employees. I definitely wasn't the first data science hire there, but I was the only data science person there for a while. Um, and then versus Exxon, which obviously is huge. And yeah, like you said, I felt like at a smaller company, I could do kind of like choose the direction. I had a lot more freedom. There's a lot more flexibility to kind of do cool things and take on cool projects. Versus at Exxon, they pretty much just hired me to be like a monkey. And they're like, spin the wheel. Here you go. And like I was about to say, good job, you're spinning the wheel. But I don't even feel like they ever really did that. I had a hard time. Like I don't feel like, and like you said, like you would save the company millions, and they're like, good, no, not good job because you didn't spin the wheel. You got to spin the wheel, Matt. So I'm glad you have that. You feel like you have that freedom, at least a little bit more of that freedom at MX. Um, what else? What else? Like, how else do you feel about like MX's culture compared to I Am Flash? Because it's a different industry, right? Like I would say you're in fintech right now, and you used to be in like semiconductor manufacturing. What's the difference in the culture?
I would say there's a lot of differences. I honestly think, like, I love working for MX, and anyone who's interested, definitely look into MX. Like, this was just announced, but we were just awarded like Inc. magazine's best places to work. So MX has constantly won, best places to work awards in Utah, and these last 2 years we've won awards nationally for one of the best places to work. And it really is like the people here are amazing, but also the amount of I say that because I was the first data engineer, but it's true of every job. There's a lot of opportunities to learn and grow and just kind of move the company in the direction it needs to go, and to have your voice is heard, and so things like that. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and yeah, like you said, I've never worked there, but I've heard really good things about it. I saw your guys' VR headsets that they give you. Pretty jealous about that. I think one thing I've noticed from going from an engineer to data scientist. I mean, there's data science. For instance, I was a data scientist at Exxon, but you definitely, as you go to these tech companies, there's definitely a different vibe than there is at some of these older, more traditional engineering manufacturing companies. You just don't have as many of the perks. Like I never got a VR set from ExxonMobil. You know, they wanted to be workplace flexible, but they weren't really.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, right? Because when I was at Iron Flash, like one of their big perks is they had free Fruit Thursday, and then they ended up canceling it because it was too expensive because people were taking more than one banana or whatever. And like, then you go to one of these, kind of more millennial tech companies, and they just have like open fridge and open pantries. And, when I was in the office, there was literally a freezer full of ice cream right behind me that I could take as much as I wanted. And it was just
heck yeah.
Like, it's just like, it's definitely different. And part of that is the industry difference, right? FinTech versus manufacturing. But a lot of that comes down to a cultural difference as well. And even when I'm working at home, they sent us VR headsets so we could have this awesome virtual meeting, which was amazing. And since then, we've continued to have like team building exercises. Like actually right before this podcast, I was playing Beat Saber with my coworkers. So,
oh wow.
So it's kind of funny that you mentioned our VR headset. So
yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, so with this role you have at MX, you're now a data engineer. And I'm actually going to take one step back. I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the transition from engineer to data scientist. What do you feel like worked out for you? Like what went well? And what advice would you give to people who are transitioning into data science?
I say this all the time, but everyone I see that's effectively made the switch has done lots and lots of projects, data science projects. And so, I had the opportunities to be able to work on these side projects at my work, which was beneficial. And I think, everyone works with data. And so, really that's something that anyone can do. It just kind of takes a different mindset and frame of reference to start thinking like a data scientist. And, I was constantly being told, oh, we can never do this, or we can never do that. And then I would go and do it. And, a lot of my projects I worked on, were just, it was like a side project that people started using. And then I would convince my manager to give me more time to work on it full time. And a lot of times these side projects, like I remember one of my projects was, I took 2 weeks to build it, at least the framework. And once I started showing it to people and people started to use it, people were like, hey, you just built something that this other guy's been working on for 2 years. Or like there's this whole other team and committee that's been trying to build it for 2 years. And it's like, oh, okay.
Oops.
It was like, oh, I guess I stepped on people's toes, but people like my tool, so I'm going to keep working on it. And then, after a while, I had a ton of traction and they had none. So then, my tool got adopted, and so, I would just say, it doesn't matter if you see someone else working on something. It doesn't matter if you think something is impossible. Like, just try it. Like, just go out. Like, if you have, especially if you can work on a problem that you personally face, you're going to be so much better at trying to solve that problem. And so that's most of all my main problems is, I just wanted to pull this data easier, right? And so then I built a tool to pull it, and then, okay, now I want to analyze it now that I have the data. And it just slowly would build on top of each other step by step.
Yeah. Okay. I liked a lot what you said there. I liked the fact that you said, everyone works with data. Everyone touches data one way or another. If you guys go through, an entire week without touching Excel, well then okay, I guess I go kind of maybe a week now without touching Excel. But you get the idea. Like people, they touch tables of numbers pretty often. And if they're not, maybe they should be. But you need to figure out how to change your mindset and look at those numbers differently. Because you said you have to think like a data set, like a data scientist. It's like almost a mindset versus a job title, right?
I honestly believe that for sure. Like, it's you just got to get your hands dirty and mess with data and face the problems that data has. And as you, there are just certain things that everyone who's faced data will know. Like I just posted about it yesterday about like outliers, right? Like that was one of my first projects was how do I clean outliers, or what are the different themes. And so I reprogrammed like Pierce's algorithm and Grubb's algorithm and just all of these different outlier detectors, and I ran it across a bunch of different data sets to get to understand how they work specifically with the data I was working with at IM Flash. And so that gave me a whole new world of insight. And then you can start, and those are kind of common ones, and then you can start moving into maybe machine learning. Like you can use k-means clustering to find outliers, and you can use a lot of other methods out there. And so, and anyways,
Where did you find all that stuff though? You're like, oh, I just learned that. What did you do to learn that?
Wikipedia. Yeah, honestly, it was just if you go to Wikipedia and look up outliers, you're gonna throughout the article, you're gonna find lots of different algorithms out there that learn it, and you can then go into those ones. If like the Pierce's criterion, I remember specifically, like they actually have the code written out in like Python and R, I believe, and so
oh wow,
I needed it in a language I was using, like JSL, and so I programmed it in my own language and learned a ton that way. And so yeah.
I'm gonna go on a small tangent there. How awful is JSL on a scale of 1 to 10?
I actually really love JSL.
No.
Yeah.
Why?
So I'm like a Jump fanboy.
Okay, I like Jump too, but I don't like JSL. Let me just say that.
No, like it's fine, completely fine. I understand. So JSL is, for those who don't know, it's the scripting language behind Jump programming language, and so similar to how like VBA is for Excel. And so I actually, so I spent years like on Jump forums learning JSL and commenting on other people's and teaching them JSL. When I left IM Flash, I was actually like one of 12 super users at Jump because of my contributions and teaching people how to use JSL. So
I wonder if you've commented on any of the questions I've posted in the community forum.
Maybe.
I had a couple, that's for sure. Where were you at the Jump conference in 2019? You didn't get to go?
I never, so like that was one of the things I didn't like about IM Flash is like in order to like go to conferences, you had to be like an E5 or something way up there to fund you. And so so I've never been to a Jump conference, and most of that is just because I'm petty, and so I didn't want to pay myself. But
it's expensive, yeah.
I was constantly encouraged to go, and I spend a lot, supporting kind of the Jump community as well. But
still,
not much anymore now that I no longer use it. I think I think that's a big problem with Jump is that, it's expensive. So
It's yeah. Yeah, like Matt said, it's a product that's from SAS. And it's like it honestly is really good. It makes visualization really easy with drag and drop, and it also makes like machine learning really easy with drag and drop. They use it at IM Flash, and they also use it at ExxonMobil. But one license of Jump for an individual user is like 2,000 a year, which honestly could be worth it for some people, but it's not worth it for me. I don't pay for it. And they don't have any free version other than if you're in school. So if you're in college and you're listening to this, see if you have a free Jump access. We did it at University of Utah and at Georgia Tech. Do you know if BYU has it?
I'm not sure. Yeah, not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I didn't use it while I was at the U. But since then I found out we had access to it. That's funny, man. I did meet there was only one person from IM Flash there in 2019 when it was in Tucson. I did meet him. Okay, sorry, that was just a little side note. I do
Yeah,
like Jump.
yeah, no, I think honestly, if it wasn't expensive, I would totally be pushing MX to get Jump. I definitely think like Jump is a great program for people to learn about data, to learn about statistics, to learn about design of experiments, to learn about, like you said, machine learning. It's just a couple click of the buttons and you can build, a tree-based machine learning algorithm. And so lots of good stuff there.
Do you think that's kind of the future of data professionals? So I'll give you an example. We're seeing a bunch of. I mean, I would consider Jump. It's mostly a statistical software. People have used it for stats for 30 years. Just turned 30. But now data science is coming out, machine learning is coming out. People are more excited about that, and I would almost call it a no-code machine learning platform. Almost. We're seeing more of those pop up. We have Ben Taylor, also a Utah data guy. He works for Data Robot. That's probably one of the biggest no-code machine learning platforms. I get like a LinkedIn message a day with some obscure company asking me if I'm interested in their no-code machine learning platform. Is that where we're going to go? Is no-code machine learning, no-code data engineering? Like what do you see the future of data professionals being?
I mean, people like when it comes to no code, like people have been stressing like no code websites forever, right? And you have tools like Wix and just tons of blog tools to no code build websites, and you can do a lot like from e-commerce to blogs to etc. However, all the companies that are really worth anything build their own tech stack, and so like there's definitely a place for when it comes to like no code machine learning, but like it gets to a point, when if you want to do something new, if you want to do something revolutionary, you're gonna have to get your hands dirty in code.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think looking to web development as an example is the best thing to do because there is really good no code website building. But like you said, it's not like like ESPN or like Google, are built on Wix or Squarespace, right? Like they have complex stuff going on. So of course, these no-code machine learning platforms like, for instance, I have a couple websites. I'm not good at building websites from scratch programmatically, so I use some of these no-code solutions, and they're awesome. They help me build websites. I'm just a little fish, and I think that's what it's going to do to give power to little fish. But I think like you said, if you want to do something revolutionary, we got to there will always be a need for data engineer and data scientists to programmatically innovate one way or another. So
Yep.
I think we're on the same page there. Okay, so Let's move a little bit to your LinkedIn headline. I think it says recovering data scientist, right?
Yep.
Tell me what that's all about. Like data science or data engineering, choose one.
I'm definitely going to choose data engineering.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, I guess, as far as that title goes, recovering data scientist, I think like there was, a big shift in my mind between, I used to look out at everyone doing all these cool projects and just being super jealous. It was like, oh, I want to work on that. No matter how cool the current project I was working on, you can always see these cool data science projects out there, you know, from building bots to, beat StarCraft or Go or, whatever, like, to, self-driving cars or, there's always very fascinating problems. And there's definitely kind of this, thought, especially among younger data scientists, data analysts, etc., where, they just want to build really cool stuff. And, there was, when I started moving towards data engineering, you're working on a lot more boring problems, to be honest. Like, it's not as cool. However, the stuff you're doing is a lot more valuable. And so there was just this shift in mindset of, oh, I want to build cool stuff. I want to provide a lot of value to my company, or for MX, we're providing a lot of value to, the end users, to people who are trying to become more financially strong. And so there's, just a lot more value to the world in general. And so that was kind of my shift in thinking. And I would say a lot of my skill sets kind of proved better in data engineering. I was always trying to harness my craft and become better at programming. And, as a data engineer, you're going to be programming a lot more as a data scientist. But I still feel pretty flexible. I think I could, I'm often helping my data scientists at MX, with their different machine learning problems. And so I still feel pretty flexible, but there's definitely a shift between, as a data scientist, I'd be doing a lot more statistics and kind of experiments. And as a data engineer, I'm definitely doing a lot of more infrastructure and programming in general. So.
Yeah, I just think about you like a couple years down the road and just think about how well-rounded you're going to be. I mean, oh my gosh, like you have the data science background and then you're getting this really good data engineering background. I mean, you could go either way and the experience you've had in the past would be so useful in either way, because like you said, data engineers aren't necessarily good data scientists and good data scientists aren't necessarily good data engineers. But I think when you've kind of gone and straddled both sides, it's going to be really helpful to you. I do agree with you, by the way, that data engineering is like the more mundane, boring tasks. I think that's true. That's why I will never be a data engineer a day of my life. But like I think you brought up a good point that like data scientists are often like kind of like always chasing the newest, flashiest sports car, right? Like in terms of projects, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And you're just trying to do it fast and bring value. But you often don't like put down that foundation that like is going to make the sports car like last for years and work like correctly and like smooth. Like a lot of my projects, they work, but like the car sounds like it's like stuck in like first gear the whole time. It's like, it's going forward and it's going fast, but it's like losing bolts and nuts on the way. And like, we have to patch it as we go. And I feel like that's what a data engineer's job is, basically like, okay, slow down. Like, let's have a structured pipeline for this. Like you're like put more of a foundation. Would you say that analogy is true?
Yeah, I would, a lot of what I stress to our data scientists is, let's make sure that, your model is repeatable. Like we can rebuild it, like you can, really understand it, and I think, it's really not that much work. more work to kind of go that extra step to turn your running car into something that's more stable and more, reliable. But it's definitely something that I feel a lot of data scientists kind of try to, skip over. They're moving on to the next problem a little bit too quick.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, with that, let's talk about LinkedIn. Okay, you how often do you post on LinkedIn?
So I try to post every workday, so at least once, Monday through Friday. So,
Okay, why?
I guess, there's a lot of different reasons why. Part of it is, I want to give back. I was a browser of LinkedIn for years, and I learned a lot from people like Ben Taylor and Joe Reeds, who, always were making great posts and were local, and I met them at meetups, etc. And so, I want to give back those things I learned to other people. The other aspect is I posted on LinkedIn a few times, and then they tell you kind of who saw your posts, and it showed me like almost everyone was like from either I'm Flash or MX, right? And so it's just like, oh, like this is, whenever I post, the most people who when I was first starting, especially were people in my own company, and so one of the things you'll find in any job is you kind of get a little siloed a little bit by who you interact with at work. You're going to know your team a lot better than other teams around you. And the further away in the organization someone is, the less influence you have over them. So, I don't know if I have a whole lot of influence in sales at MX or in HR or in the C-suite, And so posting on LinkedIn gives me a way for those people to see some of the things I'm talking about and to have a greater influence over LinkedIn. And ever since I've been posting, I've always been surprised, because a lot of what I post, I kind of post, like if me and a data scientist are having a conversation, something's interesting, like that is something I like to post about. And so my posts tend to be kind of a sneak peek behind the curtain for those who want to know what like real data engineers and data scientists try to solve. And that's why I think, even though, so like I don't necessarily get a whole lot of new people or like new analysts or scientists really gravitating towards my content. However, I do see a lot of more senior people gravitating to my content. And so anyway, so that's a large part of why I post on LinkedIn, is to kind of give that influence.
It's such an underrated version of networking. People are always like, I'm networking for my external, find my next job, find people, work at Amazon or Tesla or something like that. But what you talked about was more like internal networking within people inside your company that like you've never really talked to, but you have this thing in common that you both work for MX, and it gives you exposure to them and exposure to you. I think that's so interesting, and that can be really powerful. I mean, I don't know about MX, but ExxonMobil was always like, bring down the silos, like tear down the walls of like your team and like get out and talk to other people, and a bunch of other like crap that it's nice to say they didn't ever like really do that much to do it, right? And LinkedIn is a way you tear down the silos, because there's some like arbitrary algorithm that's like divvying up posts left and right, and we don't really like, Matt, you don't decide who that note goes out to. It can be seen by the lowest people at MX or the highest people at MX. You have no idea, and you don't have like any say in it. And so I think it really does kind of like democratize speaking within a company, which is so weird, because you never think about like LinkedIn internally inside of a company. So I think that's a really interesting point. Have you had experiences at MX where like someone comes up to you and like, oh yeah, I've seen your LinkedIn posts?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually had that both in MX and at other places. Where people are like, oh, hey, I saw your post. I thought it was really interesting. Or, you know, you go across and someone's talking about your post or not necessarily about your post, but about the topic. And so, and you realize that, yeah, what you're talking about has an influence and is able to help other people. I mean, one of the things that, I do like to post, kind of interview tips, both from like interviewee and interviewer side of it. And, that was something that really helped me gravitate towards, like HR and recruiters here at MX. And they've taken notice. And so I've been able to become better friends with them. And now they like to set me up in interviews whenever they can, which is great because I love giving interviews and kind of meeting people. And so there's definitely posting on LinkedIn has been beneficial. When I was younger, I had a brother-in-law who taught me, like there's entrepreneurs, but then there's also intrapreneurs, and posting on LinkedIn I think helps me as an entrepreneur, someone who's trying to make have more influence and to grow MX as well as grow my own career. So
that's awesome. I think that's a very unique take, very, very refreshing take. Okay, last question here. We should have done this at the beginning, but I want to end on this just because we'll tease it. We'll tease it to the people, and we'll say you have to watch to the end if you want to see this. Data engineering is something that's new, has the word data in it, and has the word engineering in it. Those are like two different things. In like 30 seconds or less, tell the people what data engineering is, because there's probably a lot of people who don't know.
Oh man, 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, gotta be fast, gotta be quick.
It's ever
okay,
evolving.
2 minutes.
It's definitely different. It's everything that comes with kind of the automation of data, I think is my 30-second or 1 sentence aspect of it. So a lot of what I do is build machine learning pipelines, working specifically with data scientists. At other companies, this might be called a machine learning engineer. I have coworkers who spend a lot of time, with data engineering title that spend a lot of time building data pipelines, ETLs, working with data warehouses. They're more concerned with moving data and storing data. It's, kind of one of the ways I often say is, like data scientists are always working in a vertical, right? Like they're worried about problems like fraud or self-driving car or, just like one specific problem, and the data around that. While engineering is much more lateral. We want to build things that solve, tools and that solve the problems for not just, for fraud, as well as, for self-driving cars, as well as for, the image detection and, whatever it may be, right? So that's kind of how I see it.
I think that's a great answer. And I think people will appreciate that. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been super fun to get to know you. We've never talked. I'm going to call this face-to-face, whatever. It's the new normal face-to-face, I guess. We've never talked face-to-face, although we've interacted quite a bit on LinkedIn. It's good to meet you, I guess. And yeah, hopefully once all this pandemic stuff is over and it looks like it's coming to an end, we'll go hang out in Lehigh and do something sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to grab lunch for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. This is Matt Sharp. Go connect with him on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with him, go follow his posts. He has really interesting things, like he said, about data, about interviewing, about careers, about resume. Go give him a follow. Matt, anything you want to say to the people before we go?
Just thanks for having me. I hope you were able to learn something, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't generally reject any connection requests. So
there you go. You heard it from the source himself. Matt, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thank you everyone who was watching. I know we had Joe, Mary, Robert, Stefan, and LinkedIn user whose name I can't see. But thank you guys for watching. And yeah, until next time, see y'all later. Bye-bye. All right.